A first-time mom has shared why she chose to keep her newborn attached to the placenta until it eventually broke away 5 days after birth. Michelle Louise, 36, decided to embrace a lotus birth, where the umbilical cord is not clamped or cut at birth and instead continues to pump nutrients to the baby outside of the womb until the organ dies. The 36-year-old mom and mental health nurse welcomed her son last month in September and explained why she opted for a non-traditional birth by not cutting the cord and removing the placenta. Michelle and her partner, Edward, 34, preserved the placenta with herbs and salts and allowed it to continue feeding their son and pumping nutrients into his body until the cord naturally separated from his belly button. Michelle explains, "For us, the experience was a more gentle way for our son to transition into the world and gently unfold to Earthside. There are a lot of health benefits too, and we wanted all the nourishment and blood to go to Otter. Throughout my pregnancy, I became more involved with the placenta, its power, and its importance to our babe's life. Spiritually for us, it didn't feel right to cut the cord and detach the babe from the organ. We wanted this to happen naturally." Michelle, who is a clinical nurse aromatherapist, works and a mental health nurse for the elderly, researched various uses for the placenta, but decided that keeping it attached to her newborn son was the best thing to do. She said, "I first heard about lotus birthing from someone who had their placenta encapsulated. Edward, his son Otter, with Michelle in the water after the birth." Cater's news agency. There are many options that moms can consider to get the full potential, including freezing it and having it turned into pills. Michelle added, "Spiritually for me, it wasn't the right thing to ingest it. It had been growing with the baby and had become their best friend, so we chose a full lotus birth. I read a book called Placenta, The Forgotten Chakra by Robin Lim, and it gave me so much information." A lotus birth is known medically as umbilical non-severance, and on average, it can take 10 days for the umbilical cord to disconnect naturally from the infant. Michelle explained that it was super easy to adapt to looking after her newborn son with the cord and placenta still attached. The couple said they used Himalayan salt, thyme, and then dried it with some homegrown lavender to preserve the placenta. Michelle added that as long as it is cleaned and dried, there are no concerns over infection. She also used a pillowcase to keep the placenta protected and keep any odors at bay. Although Michelle said that by cleaning it every day and rubbing her dried herbs on it means it doesn't tend to have a smell. Edward, with his newborn son Otter, who is connected to his placenta. Cater's news agency. When Otter was 5 days old, the placenta naturally separated from him, and the couple decided on a ritual burial and ceremony. Michelle added, "There are lots of traditions with the placenta. We decided on a gratitude blessing." She, the placenta, became known as Babe's best friend Alice. "We gave thanks to Alice for her life and for giving Otter everything he needed in the womb, and we planted her, Alice, in our grandmother's Acer tree. Our intention was to give thanks back to Mother Earth for this journey, and to tie Edward's grandma and Babe together in spirit. We still have the cord, and I'd like to do some artwork with it." Michelle and her partner have been together for 2 years and live a natural lifestyle. They wanted her pregnancy, labor, and postpartum decisions to reflect that. The couple decided on a water birth at their home, with no medical intervention. Michelle said, "My pregnancy and Otter's birth was very self-guided. We wanted to come away from the medical journey of a pregnancy." Michelle's pregnancy was low risk, and the couple did go for scans, but opted out of any screening tests. The placenta named Alice from Otter's birth. Cater's news agency, Michelle, said, "We invested in a doula, Yogi Oli, for a non-medical and spiritual experience. Through her, we learnt pain management techniques, breath work, fear release, and a huge amount of trust for mine and my babe's bodies to do this together. I spent a lot of time visualizing my birth and creating positive affirmations." Michelle added, "A midwife was at our home but stayed in the kitchen. She did an examination and allowed us to continue to have a very hands-off birth." Birthing at home and free of invasive procedures and treatments has been an exceptionally empowering and beautiful experience. People have concerns over a home birth for a first baby, but I want to encourage moms-to-be to explore and discuss their choices. I want to empower women, to encourage first-time moms to trust in their natural capability and to learn what their rights are for their labor. You can have the birth you want. We have choices, and there are many variations of normal. If you do your research, people should respect that. A lotus birth was a beautiful spiritual experience and the best start in life for our little boy. It might sound strange, but the practice of not cutting your baby's umbilical cord, also known as giving your child a lotus birth, is on the rise. Another miracle happened for us. A mother of 2 has detailed the emotional and physical reasons she chose to leave both of her children attached to their umbilical cords and placenta until they fell away 6 days after she gave birth to each of them. When welcoming her first child, Ulysses, into the world 5 years ago, Adele Allen, from Brighton, opted to have a lotus birth, which is the practice of leaving a newborn's umbilical cord attached, rather than cutting it off near the stomach. Mothers who choose this childbirth method have to carry around the placenta with their baby as they wait for the cord to naturally detach from their infants. In an essay for blog mom.me, Adele explained that she kept the placenta smelling pleasant by sprinkling it with a coating of rock salt and rose petals before wrapping it in muslin cloths that they changed every couple of days. In order to transport her baby, Adele would place the placenta into a handheld cooler bag to keep everything clean and aerated. Adele said that the process felt so instinctual to her that 9 months ago she chose to birth her second child in the same way, explaining that having a lotus birth allowed her to stay connected to her children for hours after they came out of her womb. She recalled how she remained physically attached to her son for 5 hours after his birth as she waited to discharge the placenta and fetal membranes that are known as afterbirth. When she gave birth to her daughter 9 months ago, the delivery of the afterbirth took a total of 12 hours. This extended period of literally remaining connected ensured I could bond successfully with both my babies without any interference or unnecessary weighing, bathing, or medical tests, she wrote. Blood flow in the umbilical arteries and veins usually continues for a few minutes after a baby is born, and advocates of the lotus birthing method believe infants are put under unnecessary stress when they are cut off from the remainder of the blood supply that is flowing through the cord from the placenta. Adele said the benefits of a lotus birth the same as those of delayed cord clamping, a practice in which the umbilical cord isn't clamped until after pulsations have ceased. According to the mother, the practice ensures that babies receive the full 30 to 50% remainder of their blood supply and their vital stem cells. The World Health Organization states the optimal time to clamp the umbilical cord for all infants regardless of gestational age or fetal weight is when the circulation in the cord has ceased and the cord is flat and pulseless, a process that takes 3 minutes or more. And while there is evidence that there are benefits to waiting a few minutes after birth to cut or clamp the umbilical cord, it is believed that keeping the cord attached to the placenta long-term carries a risk of infection. The British Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists warned against the trend in 2008, after a small number of women in the UK were opting to have lotus births. If left for a period of time after the birth, there is a risk of infection in the placenta, which can consequently spread to the baby, a spokesperson said at the time. The placenta is particularly prone to infection as it contains blood. Within a short time after birth, once the umbilical cord has stopped pulsating, the placenta has no circulation and is essentially dead tissue. The Daily Mail previously revealed 30-year-old Emma Jean Nolan from Brisbane, who photographed Jolene Spies from Canterbury, New Zealand's newborn baby with his placenta and umbilical cord spelling out the word love. And now someone else has stepped forward and spoken about their alternative way to bring a child into the world. Mum of one Kim Vale admitted to Australian Women's Weekly that her first encounter with a placenta was when it was attached to her sister's newborn during her lotus birth. I didn't really know much about placentas to tell the truth, so it was quite a shock, she said to Australian Women's Weekly. You couldn't see it, but just knowing it was there, she recalled. When it came to the moment when Ms. Vale was to have her own baby, she thought she would like to give the method a try for herself. It was a little awkward to maneuver the baby, she said. I was a bit concerned if I dropped the placenta would the baby be yanked from my arms? We were so cautious and delicate, and in a sense, I think that helped our baby transition into the world quite smoothly. We weren't rushing about with her. Ms. Vale is now taking things one step further and considering placenta encapsulation, eating the placenta in pill form, for her second child, although she says this takes nothing away from her first child and the lotus birth. It gave me peace of mind, she said. We found she was really calm after the birth. She didn't actually cry for a very long time, and I just found it a really gentle experience. But just what is this spiritual form of birth that makes some women recoil? The philosophy behind the lotus birth is that a child has spent 9 months in the womb with their placenta, and that by removing it, the second the child arrives, a doctor may cause the child pain and distress. Instead, the lotus birth means that by allowing the placenta to fall off naturally, you are letting the baby come into the world of its own accord, as well as letting him or her get any of the remaining goodness from the placenta. It is an all-natural idea, and can take up to 10 days for the placenta and umbilical cord to fall away. As well as Jolene Spies, the Daily Mail also previously reported on Adele Allen, from Brighton in the UK, who opted for a lotus birth. Ms. Allen wrote a no-holds-barred post on her blog talking about how she kept the placenta smelling pleasant by sprinkling it with a coating of rock salt and rose petals before wrapping it in muslin cloths that she changed every couple of days. Whether you think it's disgusting or that it in fact makes sense, the lotus birth is a hot point in debate.